The game of Pokemon Yellow has 151 Pokedex entries, and my current goal is to beat the game, or at least attempt to beat the game, with every single one of those 151 entries. And this week we are taking a look at the Pokemon Zubat. Now, let's take a look at this one because, we've had some runs that obviously we knew were going to be pretty good or pretty easy. And then we've had some rounds that kind of went way worse than we expected. We've had some that went way better than we planned, even if still not great, just had a better time than we expected it to, thinking really it would be the worst. This is going to be one of those ones where if you aren't expecting the worst, then I don't know what to tell you, because you should. You really should be. This Pokemon is bad, as you can see, which is happening right here as we lose our very first fight, which does mean that we're going to be going up against the Vaporeon team for the rival, which may actually kind of be the best scenario. It's weird, like Jolteon probably is less powerful than Magnemite, but I honestly don't see Zubat making it past Shellder. Or Cloyster, rather. Shellder, I think it can make past it. Cloyster, I think, is an issue, and so therefore this probably is maybe the best scenario, but also it means that we have no experience to start with, and it's going to be impossible to get caught up. And that might be made obvious by the fact that we are going up against this Pidgey using Struggle as a technique here. That is not enough to take out a level 3 Pidgey. And then I cut to about a minute later-ish, and you'll see that we're going up against another level 3 Pidgey. And Leech Life cannot get the job done either. This Pokemon is just so weak. 9 attack, 9 special, 9 defense. I mean, we're so low. We are basically in the bug level as a bat. I would argue Zubat is just a flying bug of a... God, I don't know. I can't even think of anything clever to say about this guy. It really struggles. I had one reset earlier while I was in Viridian doing a little bit of training to kind of be able to come back here. It was kind of inconsequential, so I just didn't really show it. And then I'm trying to fight the rival here just to get some experience, and we're going to also spend a good amount of time in Viridian Forest in order to be ready for Brock. Supersonic is probably going to be the most beneficial thing in both this fight and the fight against the gym leader. Just because really we're not going to be doing anything with Leech Life. It's really going to do very little damage. So we need basically anything that we can to get them to hit themselves, because they will do more damage to themselves than we can to them. And I would argue that that's what confusing the people around you does, right? That's what gaslighting is. Gaslighting is just forcing someone to hit themselves in confusion, psychologically, not physically. It's not like a stop hitting yourself. That's not how that works. But it's kind of that, right? That's basically what we're attempting here. But the biggest issue that we keep running into is the fact that, again, our defense is so low, and when people were able to use moves like Tail Whip, we were down to 4 for the defense. I mean, they could have breathed on us and we would have keeled over dead, So we make it through that fight, and then we have to do a lot of training. There's a couple resets technically against Brock that I don't show, just because I'm sort of testing the waters at level 14. Don't know why I thought that before I even got Bite. Then level 15, and then, just to sort of see what we could do. And this is where I finally found that, okay, 16 couldn't do it, but I thought 17 would be the one. And that is, in fact, going to happen here, because basically the big thing is we don't have access to Confuse Ray yet, which has 100% accuracy, which would also be probably better, but Supersonic can still really help a lot. Leech Life is unfortunately still an awful move. I mean, it's Generation 1, so of course it's not powerful yet. It doesn't become powerful until very recent, Then Bite, there's no dark type moves, so it is still normal in this generation. So it's obviously resisted here against Onyx, but it does also have the ability to potentially cause a flinch, which is great. We don't have a lot of great moves overall. I know I haven't really dived into the move pool yet, but this current learn set that we've got right now, Leech Life, Supersonic, Bite, was a very hard fight to get through, but we made it through against Brock, which means that we can now move on to the next thing to struggle with. So I feel like one of the big things that I was kind of teasing at a little bit earlier with like the move set and everything like that, or the move pool in particular, is just the fact that there is sort of just an overall mistake that I don't think would really fix the time on this one by a lot, let's be clear. But like there's that early moment here where, especially right here, where I'm going up against the super nerd and I'm noticing that like leech life, obviously one of the few things that it can do in this game is it gets double powerful against poison types. So I sit there and I go, okay, I can use leech life. There's some poison Pokemon in Team Rocket, right? Like we're about to see here. So I started using this move more often against a lot of the poison Pokemon that exist. And I think, okay, I could use that in like Koga's gym. I could use that against Team Rocket. I could probably use that against like Nidoking and Nidoqueen for Giovanni. And like, that's just simply like untrue. And so I stick with this move, honestly, for way longer than I need to. I could probably get rid of it the minute I'm done with Silph Co. That's probably as late as I really need it. Maybe if I want to take a risk against, you know, Sabrina, but like there's no real reason to do that. I really need to be hitting a little bit harder than that. But I stick with this move for way too long. And it's just one of those things where, you know, again, like if I was to ever do this again, which I might, but also at the same time, this one really took so long. And the training process throughout the entire video just means that I dump a lot of time between certain big moments in just grinding, fighting every possible trainer, fighting a bunch of wild Pokemon, you know, just every little thing that you can do to get this little bat to do really just about anything, like just an iota of anything. But the good news is we do now have Confuse Ray at this point in the game, and this is going to be pretty crucial for a lot of the fights, at least especially in this section of the game. Maybe a little bit later we'll be able to do a little bit more with things like, again, Bite and Wing Attack and stuff like that. But really, right now, this is kind of all I've got. Confuse Ray is really my ace in the hole for quite a bit here, I think. And it's very interesting because I've never really been someone to play the confusion route, you know? Like I've never really been one to play it this close. And I really don't even know why I'm really attempting, I guess, that many Confuse Rays. I guess just because of the fact that my accuracy was debuffed so much, but we really got so close. He threw that fight, and I got to be very lucky that he threw that fight. I probably should have lost that one, should have had a reset, and, you know, we could have been set back a little bit because I definitely did not save before that moment. But, you know, that's just one of those things that you deal with, I suppose. Now, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just sort of attempt to see what happens here in this gym. One of the big things to remember here is the fact that Misty's second Pokemon is part Psychic. So that could mean that we could do something kind of cool if it does any remote damage. But also at level 23, again, looking at these stats, I really don't have much to write home about. So it feels like it's a little early to be attempting this. I really should still be completing the entire route up above and then coming down to do all this. It feels early to do this, especially just again because like this isn't even going to give me like a bonus, right? I'm not going to get a move that I can use. I'm not going to get anything like a boost, you know? There's no badge boost here. So this feels a little early. I guess I'm just kind of hoping that I can do something cool in this video. I think that there was sort of an early recognition that this Pokemon wasn't going to do much. And then also the critical hits there were kind of crazy, right? 2 critical hits on either side back to back was a little wild. We kind of needed that, but also look at that damage. That was something that I remember going, oh, right, it's supposed to be, you know, doing more, but that's really not helpful. Oops. And so I don't know why. Genuinely, I'm not gonna lie to you. Watching this back and recording this audio, I did not remember that I fought her a second time. And there's a genuine amount of concern for my own self, I guess, and a little bit of like, what was I thinking? And in a way, it feels confusing. Maybe I got hit with Confuse Ray. It also feels concerning. It feels shocking to me that I even attempted this. And I almost feel embarrassed that like I ended up doing that. But I can't just like cut that, you know what I mean? And then be like, hey, check this out. Whoops, we randomly got a reset. I guess I kind of have to show that. I got to show my work. So I suppose at this point, the only thing that we can do, like I mentioned earlier, is the correct thing, which is to go do Nugget Bridge and the entire pathway up until Bill, and then make our way back, and then we'll fight Misty again. And this time, yes, we are only 4 levels higher, but a lot of the times that can make all the difference. I mean, especially getting a critical hit like that, that's pretty huge. We're making it to the second Pokemon, the one that's a bigger threat, with only a few missing HP, which is pretty rare so far in these fights. This is the third fight, the only attempt that we've made at this higher level, but we've hit it with Confuse Ray, and this time Confuse Ray is working in our benefit, right? Starmie hit itself twice, and then we got to hit it a few times, obviously, in that meantime, and therefore we get another win. And we should feel pretty good about that win, because now we have moved on to the SSN, one of my favorite places in this game. Kind of hard to describe, but we spent a little bit of time. We're now over an hour into the game. We're now at level 33 as well, which means we also have Wing Attack. That's got some same type attack bonus, which is going to do us well. But we're an hour and 12 minutes in and only 2 badges in. That is one of our worst times so far. And that is obviously including all of the bugs that really struggled to do anything. And of course, some of them couldn't do anything in this game. They can't beat the game at all. They become impossible. But, you know, we at least still got those Pokemon through the amount of time that they could get through. So far, Zubat is kind of starting to pick up a little bit of steam. The only question is how long can he keep that up? And we're going to find out that answer right now. Going up against Lieutenant Surge, who is notoriously pretty bad, but he is an electric-type gym trainer. He's got Raichu, who has Thunderbolt that would have killed me instantly. Luckily, he goes for Mega Punch, or Mega Kick, rather. For whatever reason, I get Confuse Ray off, but there's no way. Never mind, there is way that he's that bad. I kind of keep forgetting. Absolute trash gym trainer. I mean, insane. And now we get to move on to Celadon, where probably for the only time in the entire game, I'm going to have an advantage, and like an actual clear advantage, and be strong and be able to just sort of rinse an entire area. And honestly, I know that we're really far behind, right? We're an hour 33 in. But maybe for just one brief moment in this video, we can all feel a little good about what we're witnessing. We can just kind of take a moment to go, Zubat maybe isn't all bad. Still pretty bad, but maybe not all bad. Okay, now here's the interesting thing about this fight, right? I genuinely thought that Wing Attack was going to do more. There was a brief moment here where I kept getting sort of constricted and going, uh-oh, and was thinking that could be pretty bad. Now, same thing happens here. Gloom gets the Paralyze off, and then that full paralyzation happens. The Leech Life does not instantly kill. I felt like we got closer than we probably really did, but either way, it doesn't matter. Zubat, you did the damn thing. I'm proud of you. That might be the only time I say that in this entire video, so don't get used to it. What we can get used to, or perhaps that we already are used to, is just the fact that Team Rocket continues to not really be a problem. And that is good for Zubat. At least 1 or 2 constants in the game is kind of nice to have. There's also a pretty fair constant throughout every Pokemon, which is just the fact that Lieutenant Surge is awful. So getting that easy win and decisive win, honestly, earlier on, also does feel pretty good. We probably should have been proud of that moment. Although it was really a little bit more of the fact that Surge threw. But, you know, I'll take any kind of win that I can get. Now, speaking of wins that I can get, this is a tough one. This is one that I honestly probably could get, and much easier than the way that I'm going about it. There is a very difficult decision to sort of make here, in my opinion, which is the fact that I could hold on to Leech Life for a little bit longer because it could help at Silph Co. It could help with Koga, or so I think. You know, like we're sort of really kind of putting my brain into like a weird little mix here and trying to make a decision about what feels right. And what does feel right is this next fight. This is one that overall, like Giovanni is probably one of the trainers within this game that for Zubat is going to be an issue, right? A constant problem. And luckily in this particular fight, the only Pokemon that was super strong against us was Onix, just because of the fact that Rock Throw is pretty devastating for a little tiny bat. Persian, however, could crit with the slash, but doesn't on this one, so we do make it through and we get to then finally move on. There's going to be a little bit of a pickup in speed here as we get to go against the rival that, just like the last fight, we are 20 levels over, which does mean that even though we're not one-shotting, which feels a little crazy at this point, but even if Zubat's a little squishy, he is able to do the same to at least this rival team, squish the competition. Then we get to go through the Pokemon Tower. We get another little level or so in there. Then we're going to get to go up against Team Rocket. And then we're going to save Mr. Fuji here, who's at the back of this hallway. He's going to give us a little item called the Poke Flute, which is going to allow us to get past Snorlax just over to the side of Celadon, which will open up the cycling path down towards Fuchsia City. And Fuchsia is where the next gym is. We're at 48, which is good. The strongest Pokemon in Koga's gym is level 50. So we'll have some time to sort of level up, do some training, and then we'll take on Koga and it'll be easy peasy. Okay. Yeah. Yep. So, duly noted. We are going to take a long amount of time. We did a lot of training up until Koga. We fought every trainer along the way. And now we're fighting every trainer along the other route that we could have taken, which would have been Lavender Town straight down, past yet another Snorlax. And we are going to fight against all the people here. At this point, we have left a little bit of the cycling road. I realized I said we fought every trainer. We took one of the two possible paths there. There's still about 4, maybe 5 trainers that I can fight there that I might save for later just in case. But we are desperately looking for experience points at this point. I mean, it didn't matter. It didn't matter what we did. Doesn't matter how good the moves were. So we're going to move on to Silph Co. And, yeah, so level 70. We're about 30 levels above the rivals team. And this is, I think, the highest level I've ever been at this section. Maybe the Weedle. Now that I think about it, the Weedle might have been higher. But this is bad. This is not feeling very good. I feel like to some extent in this section, I'm sort of speed running through a lot of the stuff. I mean, you know, there's a lot of stuff that I maybe kind of wax poetic on other parts, but really I'm showcasing way more failures in this episode because that's what this whole episode is. This whole episode is nothing but failures. Zubat fails forward, I think, most of the time. We just take hit after hit after hit after hit. He can't withstand anything. I mean, if you're looking at this, level 70, and he's barely in the 100s for any of his stats, feels very low. And I think we've had Pokemon that seemingly are around the same place, maybe, but they at least have type coverage, right? So even if we do beat our rival there, finally, it's still not great, right? I mean, like, we're still not doing well. We're 2 hours and 44 minutes into this video, or into this run rather, and we only have 4 badges. Zubat is maybe the worst Pokemon. I feel like this could end up being the worst one. And like, yeah, of course, Weedle was terrible, and we did change the rules so that Weedle could stand a chance. And perhaps the thing to look at here is that if Weedle didn't have the items, if we didn't change the rules, Weedle would be the worst. Okay. Yeah, I'll take that. And I remember thinking that you couldn't do much worse than Jigglypuff having only Sing for the first like 5 levels, right? But it turns out you can do worse. And it's Zubat. 2 hours, 45 minutes in, and we are just finally defeating Giovanni at Silph Co, which means we have 4 badges left. We are level 71. Level 71. We are finally going up against Koga again. I also admit that I did not learn a lesson that I've talked about before, which is if you lose 3 times in a row, just move on. I went against Koga like 6 or 7 times, I believe, back there. I can't remember how many I just showcased. But yeah, I also feel like Wing Attack should be one-shotting this entire team, and it's not. So yes, we do get the badge, but it kind of still gets close, and that doesn't exactly feel great, because it makes me even more nervous for Sabrina. However, the one lucky thing here is that even if we're not super effective against her team, they're definitely much more weak to the physical attacks. And I also spam Leech Life, I guess just sort of out of stubbornness against Sabrina for Alakazam. I think Wing Attack one time would have killed it. But either way, we have it. We've done it. We're moving on to Blaine. I never show Cinnabar Island because it's really rough on the eyes. So that's probably fine anyway. I think we can honestly, it's kind of cool to just have like a trilogy of gym leaders back to back to back. Because once the Team Rocket story's over, it kind of just starts cooking, right? You have very few blocks kind of happening. You have to go through the Pokemon Mansion to get the Blaine. But once you do that, you can defeat him on your first try. That's not even that big of a deal, right? Then you get to go to Giovanni because you've already been to that town. It's easy. You just fight against everyone in that gym. I had like 3 people. I didn't fight on the left-hand side of the gym, but I don't think I'm going to need it because I'm now level 75. I'm close to 20 levels above this team. And again, we're sticking with Leech Life. Sometimes my own personal stubbornness is... It's weird, right? Like, oh, yep, there's that reset. Sometimes things just look bad, right? Sometimes things look like, no, I should be able to make this work. I feel confident. Because the thing is if I had just picked up Mimic after I defeated Team Rocket in Saffron, if I had just picked up Mimic and started running a Mimic run for Zubat, we'd be done by now. But no, I was determined that Leech Life and Wing Attack, Bite, Confuse Ray, this could be the thing that got me across the finish line. And I was really adamant about it. I was really adamant that you didn't need Mimic to make Zubat work. And to some extent, I am correct. However, running it without Mimic may have been one of the worst mistakes I could have made for myself. I think this is made for a pretty interesting video in hindsight. Looking back on this run, I am learning more, I think, in the sort of post world than I did in the actual moment. And I think maybe a lot of that was just the frustration of how awful of a time I was having with this Pokemon. It just took me so long to get through it. I was really just kind of like, come on, man, just let me go. Just let me do this. Just kill him, And here we are going up against Nidoking with 41 health points. This should not be a win, and it's not because he uses Thunder. And then we get to come back. Get is maybe kind of doing a lot of heavy lifting on that statement. I kind of sometimes feel like when you have a Pokemon like Zubat, it feels a little bit like the myth of Sisyphus, right? I feel like I am pushing a giant Poke Boulder. I have the move strength, and I am moving this boulder up to the top of the mountain, to the top of the hill. I'm just moving this thing, and there is a hole at the top, and every time it goes in, and it lands on the ground. beneath me and I've got to start pushing it back up again. That's kind of like trying to combine these two things. Anyway, so we finally make it through Nidoking. My little story has gotten me all the way through that. And now, this is a rare treat. We have possibly the best luck I have ever had going up against Celadon, especially with a Pokemon that is super weak to him. He could have destroyed me if a single one of those rock slides had hit, and every one of them missed, and I was barely chipping away with that damage. But we did it! Zubat, you beautiful little bug wing guy, little bug with wings. You're a bat. Okay, that I guess a bat's not a bug. But either way, I feel annoyed by it. I feel like maybe that's where I'm getting that from. Either way, we have moved on beyond Giovanni. We are 3 hours and 30 minutes in. Let that one sink in a little bit. Let's just sort of witness that for a brief moment. Let's think on it. Okay, we've cherished that moment and we're moving on. Now we have the beginning of what is going to be a problem. Magneton. Magneton, scary. Magneton did a lot of damage in Silph Co. It's going to do a lot of damage now. Obviously, we beat Kadabra, which is great. Once again, using just a single physical attack takes him down. Easy peasy. Okay, Vaporeon, not hard here. But will Aurora Beam rip me apart in the future? There's only one way to find out. And that is by going through Victory Road and making it to the Indigo Plateau and the Elite Four. As always, I drop off all of the Pokemon in my party. That way, A, the only person making it into the Hall of Fame is the Pokemon that I have been battling with solely. And also, it means that every time I faint, it's a much easier sort of system of resetting and everything like that. And so here we go into the fray, level 85. This is wild to me. This Zubat has been leveled up, baby. And sure enough, moves like Bite ain't doing much. I don't know what I was thinking going for it again, but we're going for it. For whatever reason, there's a little moment there where I finally go, you know what? Wait a minute. I don't need Leech Life anymore. Why do I have this move? And I finally make the smart decision and I put the correct move on my move pool, and I cannot believe how long it took me to get there. Well, actually, I can, I guess, 3 hours, 43 minutes, 15 seconds or thereabouts. I guess that's what time it was when I said this statement. But 3 hours, 43 minutes. We'll just go with that. That's how long it took me to realize I can just give him Mega Drain. It's only worth 40, well, 80 if it's against Lapras, right? But that was so much better. Look at that. And then I'm going to survive Blizzard. That's crazy. That's crazy to me. That Zubat should have been deep freezered. Deep frozen? What's that process? Like flash frozen? I don't know, man. I feel like I'm kind of losing my mind a little bit. But also, this might also be like the only time of this whole process where I've actually had fun, because let me tell you, when I was in this portion of the process, like during the recording rather, I was not having fun. Now, granted, I did have fun, I guess, technically against Bruno, because kind of like Surge, one of the only true remaining facts of all time, Bruno bad. Anyway, that means we get to move on to Agatha. Agatha frequently being a large issue for a lot of different Pokemon. There's a lot of reasons why that kind of happens, and one of the biggest things, we kind of already saw it, paralyzation. You know, that kind of really kills a weaker Pokemon. You know, when you can't outspeed, there's kind of no shot, especially when they have a move like Psychic. Psychic was way overpowered in Gen 1. Psychic, I honestly feel like, is one of the best moves that used to exist. I think there's obviously way better moves now, but back then, Psychic, if you could put that on a Pokemon, you might as well, because that thing was running the table. And basically, that's kind of what's happening here, right? If I get hit with a single psychic, kind of like when we went against Koga, right? This is like Koga part 2. It's going to kill me. This is a bad thing to see. That was unfortunate. We made it all the way to the end. We were at almost full health. Even though I woke up immediately, man, just getting put to sleep against a Pokemon that you know has Psychic, terrifying. And we're kind of at a weird moment here too, right? We're at level 89, but I don't have any moves that give me any kind of boosts, so we don't really need to worry about leveling up in the middle of a fight. So I use the last 2 rare candies, something that I would typically save for probably Lance or the rival, just to make sure if I'm not quite there, like I've got one last little boost. I'm going to have to hope that being level 91 is good enough for Zubat to get both through Agatha and through the next 2 trainers. Could you imagine? I mean, granted, if it really didn't work, I probably would have gone and done Mimic, but I was so convinced. I was so sure that I could do this without Mimic, and I still stand by this decision. Yeah, Mimic would have made this go faster, but I really don't think we would have dropped off a significant amount of time that would have made a difference. I don't think it would have suddenly made this a totally viable challenge. It's not like, oh wow, Zubat almost did as good as Clefairy or as, Bulbasaur or whatever, right? It would not have competed at that level. So we have made it past Agatha, which is great. This was pretty crucial. That could have been a major wall. The Psychic, like I said, could have been bad. Now, this is a problem. Gyarados is one of those Pokemon who, even when it's not super effective against you, it really can be a kind of all-stop, right? Just because it hits so hard, and you get into situations like that where, yeah, even if we survive into the Dragonair, barrel-wise, pretty bad. Pretty easy to die. And, again, when you're at the, I don't know what the math works out on that. We'll say it's a quarter health. Once you get down to about a quarter health, maybe a fifth of your health, it's not happening, right? You're not making it 3 more Pokemon, and especially ones that hit harder than the first Dragonair. Now, that's a bad sign. 18 health at level 91 against a 58 Gyarados. Oh my God. That kind of thing just really, I don't know. It gets disappointing to see a Pokemon not be able to do more. But then, you kind of continue through. You're 59 and, okay, never mind. Yep. That'll do it every time, right? Ice Beam. If you're a flying type Pokemon and you see Ice Beam pop up on the screen, if that thing doesn't miss, go ahead and hit that reset. Go ahead and hit that button. It's time. That was one of those ones where you could see the moment where I just sort of sat there for a split second. I kind of let go of the controller for a moment. I was like, all right, hang on. Let's stretch. We're almost at 4 hours in. Gotta just take a breather, I guess. And then you go back in and you are finally getting to the Dragonairs with green health, though you're not going to make it out of the Dragonairs with green health. But we're at about just under half. And Mega Drain, I kind of wish was doing more damage considering it's part rock, but also it's going to resist on the flying type. Luckily, Mega Drain does do the job. We are at over half health going up against the Dragonite. Thunder does not kill us. Thunder does kill us. Man, a flinch there would have gone so hard. It would have been one of the most clutch moments of any Zubat in history, in my opinion. And you can quote me on that. I'm sure there are people who have done Zubat runs that are, speed runners that probably have, 800 attempts at this sort of thing. They're looking for the perfect RNG kind of thing. I'm not here for that. I'm here for my personal best. I'm not speedrunning by any means necessary. And I'll be honest, even though there's a couple things that I think Zubat could do differently to improve the time, blah, blah, blah. Like I said, it's not making a huge impact on some sort of grand scale. It's still going to be slow. It's still going to be bad. It's still going to be very high level. And I don't need that kind of thing in my life. I don't think I ever need to go back to Zubat. And like, I know in my heart of hearts that someday I will do silver, gold, and or crystal, something in that, you know, Gen 2 world. And I'll have to do Zubat for that. And I'm just going to pretend for now that it won't happen. That I will have a moment like this, perhaps, where we have confused Dragonite, although he still hits us, but we were at green health going up against us, and the Blizzard misses. Oh, that's what we're talking about. Okay, maybe we do Zubat again. Not in this game, but maybe coming back to Zubat. Maybe it's like, you know, when you got good luck and you got maybe some better moves, perhaps. God, that would be helpful. Maybe Zubat could do another game better. Don't think he can do this one better. Anyway, without Mimic, we have made it to the champion. We're at 3 hours, 52 minutes. Can we do it in under 4 hours? That is maybe the best possible question that we could ask for ourselves today. Zubat at level 91 has defeated Sandslash, not surprising with Mega Drain. Then, as always, Wing Attack one time instantly kills Alakazam. Being put to sleep, not ideal. We're also getting hit with Barrage. He's just chipping away. He's not even really doing that much, but we're now below half health. That is a frustrating amount of time to be under the influence of sleep. That's okay. That's a way to say it. Now, we've got a little taste of our own medicine. We've been hit with Confuse Ray, and that is scary, but we luckily break free of it instantly. Then we get some luck because Magneton has hurt itself twice, and I'm taking a weird chance on using Mega Drain the first time. But now, here we are. We have Mega Drain. Aurora Beam is super effective, but it's not strong enough. The special was high enough for us, and we defeat the champion on the first try. Okay, hang on. Remember earlier when I was like, maybe I won't be proud of the Zubat, you know, beyond this point? Actually, by the end of it, I've come back around and I'm proud of it. I think that Zubat is very complicated, right? It's like talking about an ex, where you're like, there were good moments, there were bad moments. Does the good outweigh the bad? No, it does not. But were the good moments like really great? Yeah, it's like going on a vacation that's like really memorable with an ex, where you're like, wow, that was a great time. Don't really miss it, but like that was a cool thing. You know, that's how I feel about Zubat. Zubat has really done the impossible, in my opinion. And I feel good about that. And I feel good about my ability of doing this in 3 hours, 53 minutes, and 24 seconds without using Mimic. I use his natural born abilities and also 1TM. But we did it. And that is all that matters. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredibly frustrating and a little bit enthralling, maybe, journey. If you've liked this video, please consider giving this video a like, a comment, a subscription perhaps to the channel. Any kind of interaction that you give to my videos and to me and to whatever, it's really helpful for small creators, and I appreciate it a lot. So thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. I will see you all again next week for another solo challenge in Pokemon Yellow.